you want to set it up with.
You bet. Well, we're here at the Buis Sukkah. It's been a while, Eric, since we kind of been missing each other the last 5 months, and so we're rejoining each other on Feast of Sukkot, and last time we were with each other was Pesach. Eric was brought up some stuff this morning. It's pretty interesting. He was talking about the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, as we all know it.
Revelation chapter 6 is where that starts talking about that.
Yeah, we'll have to kind of lead into that to kind of get the depth of where you're going with it. I mean, we're programmed to think, oh gosh, the 4 horsemen, here it comes. It's just all hell breaking loose on us.
In fact, wasn't it Rico that was said that there's going to be another Holocaust and it's going to be us this time?
He said as soon as all the survivors of the last Holocaust die off, then it's our turn to get Holocausted.
Really?
So, yeah.
Where do they come up with that timing? Is there any way to...
Well, that's interesting. He's on the red heifer kick now, so let's just leave that behind.
I don't know. I'm just saying that I haven't put my mind to these things for many years. And something motivated or provoked me to look at this just the other day. A guy was talking about, hey, the white horse of the apocalypse, he was given a crown. The crown is Corona. That's the coronavirus. And the white-robed guy and the white horse, that might be like the science, the medical, the priests. I mean, what is white robes and what is the corona and the bow without arrows? And I realized, well, you know, over the decades, I've heard a number of people who've written books and given talks about the 4 horses, or the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. And quite often you'll see as a graphic staged the white horse with the rider with a crown and a bow, no arrows. Then you've got this red horse, fiery red, and he has a sword given to him, and it says to take peace from the earth that men would slay each other. And then there's this black horse, and he's holding scales of balance. And then it says somebody's proclaiming a measure of wheat for a day's wages, 3 measures of barley for a day's wages. Okay, then you've got this pale green horse, which is death and plague. It's like, well, okay, are all 4 of these bad things? Well, you've got sword, fiery red. You think black, that's like, you know, the typical death guy who's like the skull with the skeleton with the black shroud on. But then you've got the skeleton riding the pale green horse. And then I remember hearing somebody write many years ago, they wrote a book and say, well, white robes, that's like the Pope wears white robes, so maybe that's the church. And then red, well, that's the communist color. Of course, the Red Army of Russia was fighting against the White Army, and the Red Army prevailed, so red became the color of communism. That's Chinese Communist flag is red, so that must be
So
communism.
in other words, you're saying that during the time of the 2,730-year curse, it's been all over the map, all kinds of confusion, and we're about ready to get this thing rolling.
Well, what I'm saying is that when some people look at an object, they'll say, oh, that means something. Well, okay, so in our mind, we look at a white robe and say, it's either a doctor, a pope, or a scientist. They wear white robes. And so white robes, it's got to be that. The black horse, well, when you're doing economics, if you're in the red, that's bad. If you're in the black, that's positive, that's good. So black must be capitalism. So if red's communism, black's capitalism, what's pale green? Well, that's got to be Islam. Green is the color of their flags, isn't it? And so what I'm saying is I've heard this over the years, that people associate colors and graphic imagery to mean something. Well, based on our culture, based on our thinking, it means something. But did it mean that to John? Did it mean that to the Hebraic mind? Did it mean that to the Greco-Roman or the Oriental or the people that live in Peru? Does that mean that to them? I mean, who establishes the meaning of these symbols? What structure? So, you know, we've talked before, is like, did the Almighty give humanity some standard of measure by which to determine accurate truth? In other words, if I say, how hot is it? And you can say, well, I believe it's 38 degrees. It's like, whoa, that's cold. It's not cold. It's dang hot out here. Oh, wait a minute. Were you talking Fahrenheit or Celsius? Oh, it's 38 Celsius. That's 100 Fahrenheit. Oh, yeah, now I agree with you. See, there has to be this standard of measure. Michael Rood, years ago, all of a sudden one day realized it talks about 3 different measurements for the volume of liquid in the brazen dish laver in the Temple of Solomon. And if you look at the units of measure, there were 3 different. It's kind of like gallons, liters, and what's another one? Ephahs or whatever, whatever the third standard of measure was. And that actually correlated to
Pi.
a year.
Oh.
No, in other words, the year 2000 on the Greco-Roman calendar equals the year 6000 on the creation calendar equals the year 5784, whatever the number was, for the Jewish calendar. And he found that the number of gallons or liters or whatever the other measure was, all were the same. It's like, hey, that's like, you've got these patterns of these, almost like, picture this as a gear wheel. At what point do the teeth mesh? And so if you've got these other gears, other factors, other spinnings, and all of a sudden they all synchronize. It's like, well, now we can reckon. So one question would be, did Elohim give humanity, if not one standard of measure? It's like some people think the Great Pyramid of Giza has tunnels inside where every pyramid inch is a year. And I think it was Gene Scott did a whole talk on this way back when, and saying, that's, you could see where Israel went into captivity. It starts going downhill like this oppression, and then opening up into the king's chamber. And it's like, well, what's a pyramid inch? Well, there was a thing on the wall that was broken into sections, and it's like, that was determined to be the pyramid inch. So did he give us something that we could realize, oh, that's the standard of measure that we can now apply to this other thing as a formula and see that it's giving us the message. It's kind of like the key that breaks the code. Okay, so Michael Rood determined that the key that broke the code was the annual year. It happened to match these 3 volumes talked about, and I don't know the details, so I can't reiterate it clearly. But we have to sit here and say, okay, if we're talking about the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, in Revelation chapter 6, the first one that gets unloosed, open the barn door, and the first guy taken off is a white horse. And so somebody was saying the other day, that's the Antichrist. And so what we have with the Antichrist is there's going to be 3.5 years of good. We think that, oh, this is a good guy, this is a messianic figure, a Christ figure. And then he turns out to be a fake. Something happens, they try to kill him, his brain goes nuts, and he turns out to be this terrible guy.
All that stuff was started by the Jesuits.
What was?
That futurist theory.
Futurist? What do you mean by that?
Well, this whole concoction of end-time Antichrist, well, it's like the Tim LaHaye books. But
Which
all this
was
started,
Left Behind.
Remember when the Reformers came out and they saw this big picture of the Catholic Church, the Whore of Babylon, all in fine detail and everything? They had to do something to stop that in its tracks, so they came out in the 1500s with these different theories, the futurist or the preterist theory. The futurist is the one where this was spawned, where there'd be this end-time Antichrist, everything has to fit this time profile. And yeah, I think it was Jesuit Riddle or somebody that started that. And that sidetracked the Protestants. And that got the monkey off Rome's back, so to speak.
So what you're saying is that in the Bible, in the scriptures, in this case, book of Revelation, or the Apocrypha, which is actually the revealing of end matters, the opening up and showing is what the word means. Not the Apocrypha, but the Apocalypse. The Apocalypse, they call it Revelation. So what we have is symbolic pictures that John had in a vision, approximately, let's say 90 or 100 AD. He was imprisoned on the Isle of Patmos. Is that out in the Mediterranean, or?
Yep.
So he's like banished to like Alcatraz Island out here near San Francisco type of a thing. What little island in the bay that's a prison. Well, anyway, so he sees this vision. Okay, well, what's it mean? Nobody's given a clue what it means. It's kept hidden as a... There was this famous thing called the Gordian knot. I don't know if it's legend or it was real, but it was like this big knot ball that, well, where's the end? But the challenge was, how do you unravel it? If you can't find the end, how do you unravel the knot? It's like a maze that nobody can undo. It's like a riddle that nobody can find the answer of. It's like Excalibur, the sword stuck in the stone that nobody can pull out, and then King Arthur, the guy that became King Arthur, pulled it out not knowing. It's just, here it is. It's that kind of a thing. So what we have here in Revelation chapter 6, verse 2, as soon as chapter 6 opens, is the guy says, hey, do not weep, John. Somebody in heaven is talking to John now, having this vision. He says, don't weep. Behold, there's one who can open the seals of this scroll. And it's like, oh, was somebody crying? Was John crying? Why is John crying? He's having a vision. He doesn't know what's going on. Or were creatures, people, entities in heaven crying? Well, what's the setup? Because soon as he says in Revelation 5:9, hey, don't weep, there's one who can open the seal of the scroll. It's like, oh, were they looking for one who could open the seal? So this one who's worthy to open the seal immediately goes up to the scroll being held in the hand, you might say, of the one sitting on the throne. If I could anthropomorphize the vision and say, is there some sort of humanoid being sitting on a throne holding this scroll such that it has 7 seals, and John's weeping. Now remember, this is supposedly John the Beloved, the one who was rested his head on Yeshua's chest, sitting there at the Last Supper, and his closest friend. And why didn't John say, you guys trying to find somebody to open the seal? Why don't you ask Jesus? He's right there. Isn't he sitting right at the right hand of the guy sitting on the throne? Why don't you just ask him to open the seal? But that wasn't an option. It's like that never came to anybody's mind, that they should ask him to do it. So it's like, well, what do you mean, ask him to do it? So in other words, this is almost setting up that there's a challenge or a riddle, there's some great riddle in the heavens. And so, I might say, I've never had a vision of heaven. I know there's people who say they go back and forth to heaven all the times these days, really literally going to the heavens and talking to the, Jesus and the apostles and King David and various angels and councils of heaven and ruling decrees and all kinds of things going on these days, but I've never had that experience. So I'm imagining that the creatures, the beings, the hosts, the Zavot of Elohim in the heavens, they know all kinds of stuff. They're smart. They see things that we don't see. They know things we don't know. But there's a riddle, a game going on, a challenge. Apparently, the one sitting on the throne, I'm supposed to be Elohim. He's got this book. Is it a book? It's a scepter. It's a scroll. But it can't be opened because there's 7 seals. And John's weeping that no one in heaven or earth has been found fit, capable, worthy to open the scroll. Why didn't John say, well, just ask Jesus? Or why didn't the angels say, hey, Yeshua, will you step over here, please? Get off from sitting beside the throne and come over here and open the scroll. And it's like, well, who's thinking they should open the scroll? So I'm guessing, I'm going to imagine staging this as like a scenario that Elohim says, hey, I got a puzzle for y'all. Who all? What all? Well, you got cherubim, you got seraphim, you got elders, you've got 24 big shots, whether they're saints, whether they're, you got those creatures that are around the throne with 4 faces and 6 wings. Those guys are there. And he said, anybody want to give a crack at opening the seals on this scroll? They come up and say, I said, you got a screwdriver? You got they've got these little multi-tools now with a little blade. They could have used one of them and zzz, cut the seal off. But they couldn't even do that. Maybe they don't have 24 volts.
Kind of plutonium.
So nobody can open the scroll. Now you go, wait a minute. I'm thinking time and space. John's writing this, let's call it 100 AD. Well, Yeshua's kicking around at about 30 AD. So John's had 70 more years. God, John must have been an old guy at this time in Patmos.
He's getting up there.
He was a young man when Yeshua was around. Say he was about, 15 maybe?
He's probably 100.
John was close to 100 years old. Well, so if all of a sudden there's this riddle, this challenge in heaven where Elohim says, anybody know how to open this scroll? Why didn't the angels say, hey, Yeshua, go get him. He's over there talking to somebody. Get his attention. Bring him over here. But John didn't even think that. If anybody should have thought that, it should have been John. But John's weeping. And then somebody comes up and says, don't weep. There's one. It's like, Well, where were you 5 minutes ago? Well, see, we're in time and space, and we're now at 2022. We're 2,000 years, virtually, past the event when John was doing this. And so we say, well, are the ones in heaven synchronized like gear wheel? Are they synchronized with time and space the way we are? Well, we're subject to space. There is no space up there. Well, yeah, there was, because there's one on the throne. There's some around the throne. What the heck? Where did that come from?
Uh-oh.
Gosh. Birds. Anyway.
Let me read that verse real quick. Kind of, people are probably going back and forth with their scriptures, but where you're talking about, I wept much, because no man was found worthy to open and read the Sefer, neither to even look at it.
Now this is
Couldn't even
Revelation 5:5.
4. Yeah.
We're saying 5:4. So you have to say, I wept much, so you have to back up. So we're staging a situation. What I'm saying is that to think that there's neither time nor space in heaven is an erroneous conception. It's like, well, man, there has to be time and space. There's one on the throne, there's some around the throne, there's space. There has to be time, because they were looking, they were trying to find somebody who could open the scroll, and they couldn't. And then all of a sudden the guy says, hey, we found somebody. So now there's a sequence of time, and then John's weeping, he's told not to weep, so there is time and space. But what time is this? If this was back in the days of Yeshua, no, this is at least 100 years later. But for John to weep, why didn't he think it was Yeshua? So what I'm saying is the challenge posed to the ones, the creatures, the beings in heaven, is kind of like this riddle that they didn't even know until the one guy says, oh, there is one. Now, if the first thing that happens once he starts opening the scroll, because the first seal lets loose this white horse, so the question is, here it is, 2022, has the white horse come out of the barn yet, out of the gate? Well, what's supposed to happen when he comes out of the gate? If it's the tribulation with the Antichrist, 3.5 years of greatness, wonderful things, and then 3.5 years of tribulation, of trouble, of all hell breaking loose, has that happened yet? Are we now at the middle, if we had 3.5 years of plenty and all of a sudden we're going to have 3.5 years of torture? Is that where we are? Or is the white horse just now coming out of the gate? Or is the white horse came out of the gate, the preterist view, a long time ago? I don't know. But what's that saying? Because at the time that John is talking about this and saying, where's one who can open the scroll? Oh, it's Yeshua, doesn't you know? He's the lamb that was slain. And so all of a sudden, he is pointed at as the guy that can open the scroll, and the first thing he does is open the first seal. If it hasn't happened yet, then this projects us into the future. So even though John is writing this at about 100 AD, it hasn't happened yet, which means John is given a view, a vision way into the future, which is beyond us. So the question is it happening now to us, or is it in front of us? Has the white horse come out of the barn yet? So in order to set up the staging of this, in Revelation 6, we got to back up to Revelation 5. They're weeping, they're looking, there's a challenge put to them. Where does the story start? Maybe you could read that, which goes back to actually, if you open up the book of Revelation, he sees this vision. Yeshua's standing there claiming to be the first and last, the beginning and the end, the Aleph and the Tav, or Alpha and Omega, or A and Z, but whatever. He has eyes of fire, hair like flames of wool or white wool or something, and feet like burnished glowing bronze, and there's all this imagery. And then he talks about the 7 ecclesia, the 7 assemblies, the 7 churches. It takes us up through Revelation chapter 3, and then it brings us to Revelation 4, and he says, now after this, so he's starting a thought which is carried into Revelation 5 and 6. So why don't you read a little bit from Revelation 4 here?
4? You want to go to 4? This thing will work on this table. Let's see. Boy, this is a mess. Here we go. Get some glare. 4:1. You want to start
Sure.
there? After this, I looked and behold, a gate was opening in the heavens.
Now wait a minute. A gate is opening in they have gates?
Apparently.
Are they keeping out the bad guys? Or are they corralling the horses? Maybe that's what. See, a gate might be.
That's where the words are posted.
Well, it's like, that's right. It might be some sort of portal of understanding. A gate is opened in the heavens. Something that was held, restricted, restrained, inaccessible to even the beings in heaven is somehow opened up. Now, here's an interesting thing. I could say, well, I don't know anything about gates in heaven. I've never been there. I've never seen it. Don't have a clue. However, there was a big gate opened on earth a couple years ago. Not CERN, but this other event. If you look at Leviticus 26, we've talked about this before, but just quickly, Elohim says 4 times, but it's in a package of 5, he says 4 times, if you find my words and my ways to be detestable, abhorrent, reprehensible, or you want nothing to do with it, or you're like, whatever, you got a casual disregard, or you just don't pay attention, the curse is going to multiply by 7. And he says that 4 times. Multiply what by 7? The curse. What curse? He doesn't even tell us. 1,000 years go by from Leviticus 26, Moshe talking, to Ezekiel chapter 4. And Ezekiel's told, lay on your side and point at this picture of the siege of Jerusalem. 40 days, that's for the southern kingdom. It's a prophetic curse. And then lay on your other side and point at it for the northern kingdom. 390 days. A day for a year. Well, 390, well, that's like a year and a month. About 13 months. A year and a month. Lay on your side, that's the curse for the northern kingdom. And if the northern kingdom never just, the 10 tribes, if they determine to not come back because they find Elohim's words and ways to be, gosh, whatever, or detestable, or, that, no way, or just not going to, any of those attitudes multiplies by 7. Well, 7 times 390 is 2,730. And so when they were taken into captivity by Assyria, a matter of history, 721 BC. Now, depending on when you calculate a calendar, was it the spring, was it the fall, where does the year change? So some people say 722, it's like, listen, it's basically 721.
Ballpark 2010.
Well, you add 2,730 from 721 BC, it brings you to 2010. There's no year 0, so it's not 2009. So about 2010 is the end of that curse. Now, that's a big door opening on earth, though we didn't even know it. It's like this gate opening up, the gate of being incarcerated, Israel being incarcerated by its tyrannical, oppressing enemies, lying to them, keeping their heads. Remember, it says in Zechariah chapter 2, verse 1, or the end of chapter 1, depending on how your book reckons it, he says he sees 4 horns, and he sees these 4 harashim, carpenters or craftsmen, to terrify the horns of the nations that had oppressed Judah, Israel, and Jerusalem so much that no man could even lift his head. What are you looking at? We've had that for like 3,000 years. So the gate to be opened up for some kind of relief,
See,
would have been like 2010.
what I think everybody realizes is this new return to Torah. It didn't start in some little church in Azusa Street and spread out, or in a tent.
The 1906 Azusa Street
big
revival.
revivals. This is the revival. This is the one we've been waiting for right here. Everybody will testify, 2010, that's about time when I started questioning these things. And that's about the time my family members didn't like me no more. That's about the time that I questioned the pastor about these things, and he didn't want to hear about it. Just leave those questions alone. That's when everything started to kick in. And it could have been a little before. It's still continuing to this day, but that's the ballpark, and nobody can deny that.
So,
it didn't start in one little place here. It was global.
So Assyria had, from what I understand, a 13-year takeover war campaign by the time they took over the whole northern kingdom. Well, so that means the first ones to go into captivity were maybe 13 years before. Well, 13 years before 2010 was 1997. Remember, in 1997, at least in the United States, they had the Million-Man Christian Man March on Washington, D.C., where they said, let's forgive each other, let's let bygones be bygones, let's make amends. And it's like, well, whatever became of that? I met a guy that had gone there, and he says, I don't know, nothing. That was the beginning of the opening of the gate, but it's fully open, you might say, like one of these gates that's on an automatic opener. It's fully open by 2010. So some people can say, well, not 2010, it was a little earlier, like you said, 1997.
Well, some people began with Armstrong back in the day.
Even a little bit before that, right. So the point is, here we are, some big gate opened around 1997 to 2010, at least on Earth. And if that's the gate of the heavens, now we have some synchronized teeth on the gear.
Something to consider.
So read some more then. What happened there?
And the first voice which I heard was as it were a shofar talking. Oh man, this is filthy English. Talking with me, which said, "Come up hither."
No, wait a minute.
Come up hither is the rapture cry. You know, that's where the rapturous LaHaye and Jenkins and all the people say that's the call when his saints are raptured away. So you don't have to even engage with the rest of the stuff that comes after.
I had never even really heard anybody blow a shofar, maybe somewhere back in my memory.
What's it sound like?
Well, yesterday I was at a group meeting that they regarded today as Yom Teruah, the day of blowing a trumpet, starting last night. Other people said it was last week. And something about hearing the shofar speaks to your inner, deep-seated consciousness.
The inner Hebrew man.
The inner Hebrew man.
Hallelujah.
It's time to wake up.
It resonates.
It's time to wake up. Daniel 12:4. Hide the words and seal the book until the time of the end. The word end spelled kufzadi. End of what? Yod kufzadi means wake up. It's time to wake up. It's the end of your incarceration. It's the end of the ignorance. It's the end of the time of oppression that we can now, as the lost 10 tribes, return to the Torah of Yahuwah, the Elohim of Israel. So then what happens?
And immediately I was in the Ruach, and behold, a throne was set in heaven, and one sat on the throne.
Now, does it say who's sitting on the throne? Is that Jesus?
One in
Is that Yahuwah?
italicized one. So
it doesn't tell us who or what, whether that's the Father or the Son, or if that's even some other being.
And sat on the throne. And he that sat was to look upon like a jasper and sardine stone, and there was a rainbow round about the throne, in sight like unto an emerald.
So this is not like a gay rainbow, this is an emerald rainbow. So is that like variegated greens? Green colors of like a rainbow?
You better be careful here. They'll kick my ass off YouTube if you start going into this gay stuff.
I'm just asking if it's their rainbow. This might be the occasion when those guys have some preeminent location in heaven. Though he said people who do that stuff don't get in. But I don't know. I'm just trying to appropriate significance to the symbolism.
And round about the throne were 24 seats, and upon the seats I saw, then Aleph Tah, are 24 elders sitting clothed in white raiment.
And are these humans or are these angelic elders?
24 elders.
It's almost like 24 blackbirds baked in a pie. 24 elders sitting up on high.
But they did have on their heads crowns of gold.
What does that mean?
Pretty noble.
But are they humans or are they saints or are they?
Well,
are they a lineup of 24 popes that?
Yeah, I'm sure it was
historically?
the popes. Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. Are
Way
they
back into the days of the
Jewish
Borgias.
rabbis or what?
Way back in the days of the popes, where they're the Borgias. Know about them, right? Never.
The
That's
Borgias?
another. Never mind.
Sorry, I don't know about that. But go ahead.
And out of the throne proceeded lightnings and thunderings and voices, and there were 7 menorahs of fire burning before the throne, which are the 7 ruach of Elohim.
Well, now wait a minute. There's 7 branches on a menorah, and each one,
we got
as one way to
49.
read it, has 3 lights, and the one in the middle has 4. So is it one menorah with 7 branches, or is it actually 7 menorahs with each one with 7 branches, making a total of what? What is it?
Now you're making me do math. Don't do that.
Okay, these are just pictures. I'm just trying to set the stage of pictures. Go
Okay.
ahead. Go ahead. So this is a pretty spectacular scene. There's a throne. There's one glowing
That's
like
spectacular.
jasper, which I think jasper can take different colors. It's maybe red, maybe green, maybe a blue. But there's an emerald. There's a variegated green rainbow
7
above
times
him.
21. That's 144,000, isn't it?
7 times 21.
Well, you're trying making me do math.
I don't know. Okay, go ahead. It's close.
And and before the throne there was a sea of glass, like unto crystal. In the midst of the throne and round about the throne were 4 living creatures, full of eyes, before and behind.
Now the word eye means to understand, so if there's going to be a big riddle or some kind of Discovery Quest challenge in heaven, you'd think those guys with 4 faces and a bunch of eyes, they should know how to say who's capable, fit to open the scroll. I mean, why don't they get it? Anyway, go ahead.
And the first living creature was like a lion, and the second creature like a calf, and the third had a face as a man, and the fourth living creature was as a flying eagle.
A face like a flying eagle?
Well, it said, and the fourth living creature was like a flying eagle. It didn't mention a face. Third living creature had a face as a man.
Okay, so we got lion, ox, human, eagle.
Lion, calf,
Lion, calf.
face as a man, eagle.
So we're not going to go there right now, but what I'm saying is that those 4 images might mean something if you put those words of what the word for calf is literally means round. I think the word is ophel or something like that in Hebrew. It means round, like a fat calf. The word for lion, there's a couple different words, but one is Ari, like Ariel, lion of El. Word for man or human would be Ish, Aleph Yod Shin, and then eagle is
Let me check our time.
Nasar, Nun Shin Resh. But the point is, one way is just to, okay, we're reading a picture, we're looking at symbols, but the other thing you can do is like, well, put the words into Hebrew and see what else those words mean, and elaborate the vision with that. Pause for a moment.
No, keep going. I'm just trying to read this.
You can contemplate the matter. He's checking the camera here. So what I'm saying is that if all
31.
if all this is symbolism, then we could say, well, they're just pictures, it's staging, but everything means something. The other day I was talking about, I saw this word based on the prophecies of Yaakov to his 12 sons, and there was this word, Samik Nun something, well, the word is part of that study. Samik Nun is the word thorn, or thorn bush, and I looked in Klein's dictionary, and there's a word spelled Samik Nun Bet Tet, something, and it said headdress. It's like, headdress? Well, there's other words that mean headdress or turban, but why is this word spelled that way? Well, Samik Nun is not only the word bush, but it's thorn. A thorn bush. Wait a minute, Yeshua wore a headdress of a thorn bush when he was being crucified. So instantly, just seeing that word associated with the picture, and then I thought, well, if Samik Nun means thorn, what does the rest of the word mean if I broke that apart in Hebrew and looked at it? And it's the essence of the word that means look at the utterance. Look at the utterance of this headdress. In other words, it means something. So why was he wearing a crown of thorns? Well, they were whipping him. They were going to kill him in a few minutes. And all of a sudden, one Roman soldier gets the funny idea, ha ha, what a joke. Maybe he was standing next to a thorn bush and got scratched. He's like, I guess, hey, let's do it to him. So they took this a bunch of thorns, rounded into a circle of a crown, stuck it on his head, and pounded it in. Ha ha, yeah, that'll teach you, crown of thorns. What a joke. King of the Jews.
Kind of like Yonah with the seaweed wrapped around his head.
And kind of like the ram being caught in the thicket. So it was all symbolism, staging, and it's like, but the fact that this one word spelled Samik Nun Bet Tet Hey something, it was like, look at what I said. So him wearing a crown of thorns was not just decoration, it's a message. So what I'm saying, I'm using that as an example, saying everything we're reading here, if we put it into Hebrew words, is a message captured by the symbolism. It's not just the picture.
See, that's another thing we were talking about. I don't think you believe that any of the New Testament was written in Greek.
You know, some
I
of it
just
may
find
have
that
been
hard to believe.
I think it was written in Hebrew. Andrew Gabriel thinks it was written in Aramaic, and it's like, well, yeah, but Hebrew is the kadosh, shafah, the sacred tongue, smooth, clean, restoring to health, curing from insanity. It's got to be Hebrew. It's got to be Hebrew.
I mean, why are they going to change horses in the middle of the stream to some
Well, to jump from the white to the red to the black to the
crazy
green, you mean?
pagan dialect? Come on.
Okay, well, anyway, let's go ahead and keep reading.
Ah,
Robes of righteousness enveloped him.
I wish. And the four living creatures had each of them 6 wings about him, and they were full of eyes within, and they rest not day and night, saying, Holy, set apart, set apart, set
Kadosh,
apart.
kadosh, kadosh is what they're
Yahuwah
saying.
Elohim Sabaoth, which was and is to come.
So these guys, if they have 7 eyes, that's like incredible insight. If there was a question as to who's worthy to open the scroll, those guys should have been able to do it, I would think. I mean, with 7 eyes, I mean, come on.
Well, they had golden crowns.
Well, that should have given them some sort of clout. Anyway, go ahead.
And when those living creatures gave glory and honor and thanks to him that sat on the throne, who lives forever and ever, the 24 elders fell down before him that sat on the throne, and worshipped him that lives forever and ever, and cast their crowns before his throne, saying, You are worthy, O Yahuwah Eloheinu, to receive glory and honor and power, for you have created all things, and for your pleasure they are and were created.
Okay, now wait a minute. Now they're bowing down before the one sitting on the throne, and they're calling the one sitting on the throne Yahuwah Eloheinu.
Mm-hmm.
So now I can assume that that's the Father, not the Son. I'm just guessing. So I'm going to say
they
that
they both claim to be the Aleph and the Tav, the first and last beginning.
Yeah, but is that the Son sitting on the
If
throne?
Yahuwah is speaking the words, and those words became flesh, then those still are him, correct?
You're posing quite a conundrum,
Let's
a mystery
let's
here.
just go.
An enigma.
Let's just go.
Okay, so, but anyway, they're acknowledging the one sitting on the throne as being the creator of heaven and earth. That's for your pleasure they were created.
Yeah.
So if Yeshua was the creator and not the Father,
Well,
then is that Yeshua sitting on the throne?
see, that's a big mystery.
Yeshua came in Ben Adam, anthropomorphized as a
It does say
human.
later on in this word that the first and the last who was dead yet is alive. So we got a big mystery here.
Well, I'm just saying it overlaps. It's not set up nice and clean. I mean, you really have to wrap your mind around this.
I don't think you can make this type of Ecod nice and clean. We don't understand.
Well, I'm saying it's rather confusing, but it's staged as this conundrum. Okay, go ahead. What else?
Well, that's the end of 4.
That's the end of chapter 4.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the setup for chapter 5. So we've got this one sitting on a throne that the creatures with 4 different types of faces and 6 wings and crowns, and you got 24 elders, and you got the sea of glass, and you got the emerald rainbow, and it's like this is quite a staged event.
This is interesting.
Beginning of chapter 5.
And I saw on the right hand of him that sat on the throne. He saw on the right hand of him. Well, isn't the Messiah supposed to be seated at the right hand of the Father?
Yeah, that's what they say.
A sefer written within and on the backside, sealed with 7 seals.
Okay, now a sefer, let me suggest, how big is the scroll? You know, I was at somebody else's house last night and they opened up the cabinet and there's a Torah scroll. That thing was about 3 feet tall, rather heavy, 2 columns, well, kind of like that picture over there with these 2, and it's like, man, there's a bunch of words written on that. How big is this scroll? It's in his hand, but he has a big hand. How many words are written on that scroll? What's it a scroll of? Is it the scroll of life? Is it the book of life with people's names written in it? Or what's written on this scroll? It doesn't even say. So if I had this scroll and I rolled it up, let's say I'm just rolling this up and I'm holding it in my hand, well, I could have thousands of words written on this, but what if there was only 1 word written on this? It's still a sefer, it's still a scroll, and it might have 7 seals. Yeah, I was going to wipe that with this one.
Continue.
It's getting it all about that bird was eating blackberries, I'll tell you.
It sure is.
What the heck? It's on. I still have to take a photo of this and put it on my send it to the Erictology YouTube thing, so people are going to see this and that. Hey, you were
they
here
know where
when
it
this
came from,
happened.
yeah.
You know, timestamp. And anyway, he has this scroll, and we don't know what's written on it. We don't know what the scroll is. But see, as we've said before, if you go back to John 1:1, in the beginning was the Word. Hey, wait a minute, maybe the scroll is that word. And I project that that word is the Hebrew alphabet, the 22 letters. So you could say opening this up is simply the 22 letters. Now, for us to be talking about, hey, what do these letters mean? Hey, guess what? The letters actually talk about Yeshua. Well, the letters also talk about Aleph is an ox, Bet is a house, Gimel is a camel, Dalet is a door, Hey is a window, or to say the, or point to, and Vav is the man, the sixth letter, the connector, and Zion is means an axe or to cut something off. So the first 7 letters can be read as the one coming from the heavens, Aleph, born of a woman through the birth canal, Gimel Dalet Hey, as the man, the Vav, who would be put to the weapon, Zion, put into the tomb, Chet, round rock rolled in front of it, Tet, sealed, held shut, Yod. There's the first 10 letters as a picture of Yeshua coming to the earth. Is that what's written on the scroll? Well, why don't they know that? If that's what that is, I'm just projecting this theory. So it's like, certainly the 4 creatures with 7 eyes each know that. Certainly John knew that, because here it is 100 AD, and John knew that from 30 AD when Yeshua came and did it. Or did they? Did anybody ever appropriate Yeshua's voyage coming from the heavens to the earth, to be slain, to be risen, to ascend, to come back, correlated to the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet? Did any of those guys in heaven ever think that what if there's on this scroll with 7 seals is the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet, and the one that makes it all sync, the gear lines meshing with the 7 days of creation, the Mishkan, the Moedim, the Beatitudes, Yeshua's narrative story in the gospel, is the key that opens the seals? They didn't think of that, apparently. We're thinking of it now, ever since the big door was open, letting the 10 tribes of Israel come back to Yahuwah. But then what does it go on to say? In what verse is this? Revelation 5 what?
We're at verse 2 now.
Okay.
And I saw a strong angel proclaiming with a loud voice, "Who's worthy to open the Sefer and to loose the seals thereof?" No man in heaven, nor in earth, neither under earth was able to open the Sefer.
Wait a minute.
Neither to look therein.
But Yeshua's sitting on the throne, or maybe it's the Father sitting on the throne. Where's Yeshua? If he's not worthy, how come none of them said, give it to Yeshua?
Well, this is his dream progression.
But what I'm saying is, at this point in the progression,
Exactly.
no man, or is that no entity? Give it to one of the guys with 4 faces and 6 wings. No, they're not even fit. They're not worthy. Are they not capable? It's not their job description. It's not given to them. But somebody's searching. They're saying they're looking in heaven, they're looking in earth, they're looking under the earth. They're looking all around and saying, we can't find it. Where are they even looking? Why didn't they look at Yeshua? Because that's not even part of the equation. So why are they searching high and low, literally, for one who's worthy? Are they looking for a person, a man? Well, that's what it says in English. That's not necessarily what it says in Aramaic or Hebrew. They're looking for something, or are they looking for someone? They're looking for the lost key. In Search of the Lost Chord, remember the Moody Blues did that song, a poem? They're looking for something, some mechanism that can open these 7 seals. Now, if I say, well, it's a man, have a man open it. No. Well, it's Yeshua. No, it's not even Yeshua.
Oh, wait a minute.
They're looking for some sort of key to the code that opens up the 7 seals. And they're not seeing it in Yeshua. They're not seeing it in heaven or earth or under the earth. So for people to say, well, Yeshua, when he's crucified, he descended into hell, he grabbed the keys. He kicked the devil in the butt with his own pitchfork. He poked him, grabbed the keys, and ran off. And woohoo! Look what I got! The keys of hell and death. Well, those aren't even the keys to open the seals on this scroll. Where do they find it?
And one of the elders said unto me, "Weep not."
Well, then John was even weeping because he says, Elohim, or somebody
said he
sitting on
wept
this.
much.
He's sitting on the throne with the scroll and saying, oh, God, we need to open this. Well, why don't you open it yourself? That's not the game. The challenge here, all you guys in heaven, all you Zavot hosts, you angel creatures with 4 faces and 6 wings, start flying. Go look. It's like this big Easter egg hunt sort of a thing, a treasure hunt. Go find what can open these seals. I'm going to sit right here for as long as it takes. And they're running and looking high and low, heaven, earth, under the earth. Can't find. It's some great mystery. It's the greatest mystery in the universe. what will open these seals?
Behold.
And John's weeping like crazy because it's like, come on, give us a clue, would you?
Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Yehudah, the root of David, has prevailed to open the Sefer and to loose the 7 seals thereof.
Isn't he the guy sitting on the throne? Well, open it yourself, you sitting on the throne holding the scroll in your hand. Well, then where is he? Is Yeshua taking a nap? Was he out fishing? Where is he that they couldn't find him, searching high and low in heaven or on earth or under the earth, and all of a sudden it's like, he has prevailed. Well, what does that mean? That means somebody comes to the idea, wait a second, we're not looking for a person, we're not looking for a key, we're looking for a concept. And the concept is Yeshua coming from the heavens to the earth, Aleph Bet, born of a woman, gimbling through the Dalet of the hay to be the Vav man who was put to the weapon slain, entombed Het, round rock Tet, secured Yod, jump ahead a few letters, Pei Zadi, the grave opens up, Kufi rises up, ascends, Kufi comes back as the rest sheening the Tav to gather up his betrothed. Well, wait a minute, that guy as the Lion of Judah, that narrative gospel story serves as the key to break the code of the meaning of the 22 Hebrew letters, which is a sefer held by 7 seals. And all of a sudden to realize, hey, that's what it is. Weep not. That's what makes it worthy, fit, suitable to open the scroll. It's not that Yeshua, thank you, well done, you did a good job, why did he have to die? Well, because by coming and doing that, it's the key that opens the scroll.
This part of the vision, when he was weeping, could have been a predecessor to Messiah. And then, as time progressed through the centuries or millennia, then the next part of it kicks in.
Yeah, but see, John remembers that about 100 AD here, which was 60, 70 years after Yeshua did this. So John would have known the answer, but he never even put his mind to it, because what I'm suggesting is that they didn't realize that what Yeshua came down here to do was correlated to the letters of the Hebrew alphabet.
True.
What if nobody knew that until, weren't we talking, remember we made that chart in 2010, and about 2010 we started saying that all this stuff in the Ericology class of 2011, making this evident, making this known worldwide on the internet. What I'm suggesting is perhaps Yahweh said to those smart people with all these eyes in heaven, until my people, the 10 tribes of Israel, are allowed to come back, 2010, are allowed to see Yeshua as the Mashiach correlated to the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet, then you guys don't even get to see that in heaven. And he's standing there holding this scroll of the 22 letters held by 7 seals. Well, what's a seal? If you look at the word for seal, it's an imprint, it's an engraving that means something that talks of the identity of the one. And I'm suggesting, like we have that emblem of the red seal, you know, the wax ring stamp thing with the 22 letters. And I'm suggesting that that's the great seal of the Elohim of Israel. And for Yeshua to come down here, submit himself unto death as a lamb who would be slain, who was innocent of his own criminality, but by doing so, he redeemed and recovered all the otherwise unforgivable sins of his people. That great feat made the key, not only him being worthy, but it became the key suited to the tumblers in the lock, as it were, so it fits, so it's able to open the seal. Because the seals now must be correlated to the meaning of the letters of the alphabet, to the scroll, which is the meaning of the letters of the alphabet. It's like, come on, you're so obsessed with the letters of the alphabet. It's like, because it all fits. It all works. And it's not until, like Daniel 12:4, until the time, Ayin Dalet, Ayin Tav. Well, Tav is a symbol of the, like a letter of the alphabet. To ayin it is to comprehend, weigh, measure, balance, exactly, determine what its value is. Well, what's Ayin Dalet? Weigh, measure, and determine the Dalet. What Dalet? Yeshua claimed to be the door. The Dalet. So to comprehend Yeshua being correlated to the letters of the alphabet, and to realize that the letters of the alphabet qualify Yeshua as being Mashiach, Shiach, Shin Yod Het, literally means conversation and communication. Mem is the tool, or the one who, or the allowance for. So the word Mashiach doesn't just mean anointed, but it means here is the one who is the embodiment of the communication. What communication? The 22-letter Sefer of John 1:1 in the beginning was that word, the 22-letter word, from which everything is made, and the core, the chronological progression of human history from Genesis 1 all the way to Revelation 22 somehow has to fit these 22 letters. And to realize that, and to have that allowed to be broken open as of 2010, the end of the 2007 or 30-year curse, what I'm saying is here we think those guys in heaven are so smart and we're so limited, but all of a sudden it almost appears like Yahweh said, once my humans, Israel, come back to the terms of the covenant, then you guys in heaven can see this too. It's like they're dependent on us. That gives us this position of prestige like I've never even been able to consider before. But that then synchronizes us back to this event.
I think it's Acts 3:21 agrees with that. So the heavens must receive him until the restoration of all things.
Well, that means like right now. That brings
thinking
this
is our
current.
chance.
Well, what happens next? Verse
And I
5.
beheld and lo, And I beheld and lo, in the midst of the throne and of the four living creatures, and in the midst of the elders stood a lamb as it had been slain.
Wait a minute, I thought Yeshua was sitting on the throne. Now we have a lamb as if it was slain. So what I'm saying, instead of saying, oh, we know who that is, that's Yeshua. No. It's symbolic. Here's the code. The code is standing here as a lamb who was slain. You have to correlate the symbology to the event of Yeshua's gospel narrative, and suddenly it makes sense. And what happens?
And he came and took the Sefer out of the right hand of him that sat upon the throne. And when he had taken the Sefer, the four living creatures, 24 elders, fell down before the Lamb, having every one of them, Kithara? What's this word? I never saw that in there before. Kithara? And golden vials of odors, which are the prayers of the Kodeshim. And they sung a new song, saying, you are worthy to take the Sefer and to open the seals thereof, for you were slain, and you have redeemed us to Elohim by your blood out of every kindred and tongue and people and nation. Then he jumps right into this. And having made us, our Elohim, made unto us, our Elohim, kings and priests, and we shall reign on the earth.
So that's in front of us
That's quite
still.
a leap, isn't it? Going through all that, and then boom, this is opened up, and you're going to make us king. Dang.
The word for king is melech, which means one who, mem, prefix, one who lamed kaf. Lamed kaf means to you, walk this way. Halakha is this is the inscription, the inscribed instruction how to walk, which includes sitting in your sukkah for a week during the 15th and
Just doing
21st
his
of the
stuff.
7th month, doing his stuff. Well, it hasn't been done before because the Christian
We're gonna
church
have to,
forbade it and made it
This
illegal.
will have to be 2 parts. We're about at an hour now.
Okay.
All right.
We'll
You
turn
want
it
to
off
leave
and
them
shut
with
it down.
something really mystic and
cliffhanger?
something to just kind of bait them into getting into that second video. You
What
got
would that be?
anything? I don't know. What do you got? Blow the shofar. Do something. Pour the soda on your head.